Hey, what's up? How you doing today? It's Love and Liberty over here. You know, we're about to get this work in like we do every day until they release these damn Epstein files. Until Trump releases these damn Epstein files. And no, we know the shenanigans they're up to. We know he's gonna try to say that everything concerning him is under investigation. But we'll get to that later. We're gonna talk about conservative Christianity, communist corruption crisis. Conservative Christianity's communist corruption crisis. You're like, what are you talking about, communists? These are the capitalists, right? Yeah, just like Christians who go against everything that Jesus Christ actually taught call themselves Christians. These are communists pretending to be capitalists. And how it all results in a huge amount of our population having no free will, having their free will stolen from them by a cult. At the core, conservative, white evangelical religion, it relies on one of two things: making its followers so afraid of hell that they give up their free will to obey a corrupted religion, or B, incentivizing their followers to sacrifice their free will for money. And obviously people who have nothing to do with religion get in on the money side too. We see all the right-wing manosphere grifters jumping in because they realize these people have identified a group of the population that can be targeted for grifting, can be targeted for manipulation. All grifting is, all conning somebody is manipulation. And people who are so afraid of hell that they'll do whatever their leaders tell them to, or they will do anything for money, are the easiest people to manipulate. Whenever people sacrifice their free will, it means that they're now controlled by somebody else. They basically become zombies or drones of their leaders in exchange for giving up their free will. This is how MAGA can call themselves Christians while detesting everything the Bible claims Jesus Christ actually said. They wear a cross and they hate everything that the man that cross symbolizes taught. They hate it. Equality, love, liberty, justice, truth, the golden rule is like to MAGA what garlic is to a vampire. They hiss and recoil at it if you even mention it. They hate what Jesus taught, but they call themselves Christians. They become zombies or drones for their leaders in exchange for giving away their free will. And this is how they can call themselves Christians while they go against everything Jesus Christ taught. While every policy that they support or vote for flies in the face of the golden rule that Jesus Christ in the Bible said was the most important part of being a human, of being spiritual, of being what he believed was godly. We see everything that they do as a political group is in opposition to what Christ taught, and they could not care less about the blatant hypocrisy, dishonesty, or immorality because they are drones under the command of evil people. They don't think, they cheerlead and obey. Because they're afraid of hell and or because they're doing it for money, they don't think. They just cheerlead and obey. This is how good people come to do evil. So how do we define evil? How do we define good? It's very, very simple. Okay? It's very simple to define good people from evil people. Evil people are those who desire universal principles for themselves, but seek to deny them to other peaceful people using the force of government. Okay? Evil people desire universal principles for themselves, but they want to use the force of government to deny those same principles to other people. Good people are people who want the same universal principles for their enemies as they want for themselves. Good people are those who believe that all human beings are entitled to liberty, justice, truth, and love. Okay, it's very easy to tell good people from evil people, and people can cross the line both ways. People can get pulled away by the fear of hell or seduction of money away from being good people. Or you can take people who've been caught in a cult that never realized they had been indoctrinated into a cult, like me growing up, who, because of the fear of hell, was doing evil in the name of a cult. And you can cross the line the other way and start saying, you know what? Even for my enemies, I want them to have an equal competition against me. I don't need a rigged game. I want them to have love in their life. Who would I want to deprive of love? I want them to have liberty, which liberty doesn't mean freedom. It means your rights stop where my nose begins and vice versa. We can't poison each other's common drinking water, but otherwise we have the liberty to pursue our own happiness. We want justice. We don't want people arbitrarily thrown in jail or kidnapped. We want a jury of our peers to uphold justice. And we all want truth. So good people are not afraid to give those things to their enemies. Because if my enemy has justice, if they still commit a crime against me, if they have justice and I have justice, that means justice will be done. That means they will not be allowed to persist in depriving anyone of liberty, because justice will be done on behalf of everyone. Who would be afraid of that? Evil people. Evil people want different rules for themselves than they want for others, and that is the easiest way to tell. We can also separate strong and weak people using the exact same filter. There is no greater strength than the strength to claim one's own free will in the face of a powerful group of people or a cult trying to take that free will from you, to bully their followers into being as weak, rage-fueled, and subservient to evil and nihilistic as they are. Misery loves company. Misery loves company. These weak, rage-fueled, subservient people need to take the free will of other people to sustain themselves. And there is nothing weaker than giving your free will to those types of people, and there is nothing stronger than resisting those people and claiming your free will. Free will is one single thing that no one can take or steal from you. It must be given up by you voluntarily for somebody else to control your free will. There is no greater weakness or defeat than realizing that you've been tricked out of your free will and then being unwilling to reclaim it. Day after day, letting day after day go by, you realize you've given up your free will to this cult and you can't bring yourself to reclaim it. There's nothing weaker than that. It's a choice. Reclaiming somebody's free will is a choice that anybody can make at any time. When MAGA people have the honesty to admit that they were conned, that they were indoctrinated, and then they apologize, they can be freely accepted back into the fold of decent and good people of society. Remember, we defined good and evil. They can come back to the fold of good people when they admit they were conned or indoctrinated and they apologize. But until they do, we must all treat them the same way that we would weed a garden or attempt to eradicate any disease from our bodies. We cannot ignore the toxic infection that MAGA causes, that conservative, corrupt, communist Christianity causes. We cannot ignore it. We cannot also bog ourselves down in their fire hoses of falsehoods. We cannot bog ourselves down addressing every one of the 10,000 lies they tell on a daily basis. We must go to the root of the problem like anyone who loves a drug addict must do. We don't debate crackheads. We simply show up every day to offer them a different path. but they must choose it for themselves. It is the same with MAGA, corrupt, conservative, communist Christians. Otherwise, good people, why good people do evil, good people can become indoctrinated by families who have, the whole family has been made to be terrified of hell or terrified of religion because they rely on religion for money. And this can go back for untold amounts of generations. So it's not about blaming anybody. It's not about blaming your parents, but realizing that in many cases they were also victims for generation on generation. They were victims of the same type of indoctrination who had less resources than you have today. Your ancestor did not have the tool to communicate with other people to show them the way out of the cult, and they were made more and more afraid of hell, or more and more enticed by money, or both, generation on generation, until here we are with you today. You didn't intend to be a good person supporting PDFs. You were indoctrinated into this. It's about shining a light on the corrupted conservative Christianity cult system that most of these people never realized was trapping and exploiting them. When people have an irrational fear of hell, and they also never receive an education that teaches them how to think instead of what to think, so they're brought up with an irrational fear of hell, and then they never learn how to think, how to reason. They're told what to think, what to believe, what to fear. What chance do people like that have? What chance does a child who is never taught how to think and they're taught to fear hell, what chance do they have? They don't have any until fellow human beings show up for them. That's why those of us who have already walked the path away from this cult and back to universal principles, those of us who've already walked that path come back to light the way for those who desire to live with integrity but got caught up in this cult without realizing what was happening to them, without realizing that their free will was being gradually given away until there was nothing of them left but a drone or a zombie to do the will of PDFs, of evil people. We defined good people versus evil people already. It's very simple, very easy to tell the difference. Rules for me, not for thee. Rules for thee, not for me. Evil. Same rules for everybody, same universal principles for everybody. Good people. You want those universal principles for yourself and your family, but you want to take them away from other peaceful people? That's evil. It's very easy to tell the difference. Everything they do is to try to shoot as many fireworks and spread as much filth as possible to detract from this very obvious red line. It's very easy to tell good from evil, and they don't want us to get this message to their children, because even a child can tell this is true. We're not trying to insult anyone. We're not trying to sell anything or do anything here other than paying forward a blessing shown to us by other strong men of integrity. Remember, strong men, it doesn't have to do with physical strength, although we will see most people in MAGA are disgustingly weak, and that's what this cult will do to you. It will make you into a weak person in 1,000 different ways we've talked about on this channel. But we're not trying to insult anybody, sell anything, or do anything other than pay forward a blessing shown to us by other strong men of integrity, men who claimed their free will, men who stood up for universal principles for other people and their enemies the same as they did for themselves, who helped us out of this cult and showed us how to reclaim our free will. So that's why we do what we do. Those of us who were raised in this because it's generation on generation of trauma, cult bonding, and it's all for a purpose to serve these evil people that we see MAGA serving today. And they could not do it without corrupt, conservative, communist Christianity. Because communism is all about taking people's free will away. It's all about forcing people into one factory output. That is MAGA, that is conservative Christianity, that is communism. And it is absurd as them calling themselves Christians while they hate everything that Jesus Christ taught. They call themselves capitalists while acting like communists. And if you can get a group of people to say blue is red, left is right, up is down, you can make them do anything. That is the point. Break their free will so they're used to giving it up, turn them into cheerleaders and parrots and mercenaries, and then control them so that PDFs and billionaires can run our government and distract us with all these 10,000 lies that now we're going to get into. So my point, all these other liberals are missing the point. They deal with every one of the 10,000 lies this cult tells. And they're not serious about any of it. They're drones, they're zombies. You have to get to the root factory output. You have to go to the factory, to the source that's churning these people out. Everything else is a distraction. So now we're going to distract ourselves, but we are going to do that and keep pointing out how we, decent, good people of society, which we have defined, very simple to define good from evil, we're going to talk about how the good people get distracted, and even though the evil people are the minority, they can take control because they're so cohesive. These churches are 10 in every city in America. Liberals who have their free will, because they have their free will, they all have a different opinion. They don't go to the same, they don't meet up as a community and homogenize the way that these communists do. They all operate with liberty, like, a million different independent chickens, 100 million, 200 million independent chickens doing their own thing, which is great until the small pack of wolves takes you over because they were so unified. So now we're going to see how liberals divide ourselves, wasting time playing the games that the leaders of this cult intend for us to play. They use their drones or zombies to overwhelm us with bullshit and divide us all against each other. And so good people have to coalesce, have to unite, and when we do, these people will never stand a chance. All right, with that, we're going to get into Jasmine Crockett, breaking down exactly who these people are, and then we'll go on from there.
Since January, Donald Trump has used the full power of the federal government to attack Americans in cities across the country. In Donald Trump's America, you are at increased risk of experiencing militaristic operations in your home, increased risk of being subject to detainment by masked thugs and wannabe vigilantes, increased risk of suffering injuries due to reckless and illegal acts by rogue federal agents, increased risk of being deported to foreign nations even if you are an American citizen, and you're at an increased risk of being targeted by federal government for criticizing the president and his friends. Congressional Republicans have completely abandoned their Article I powers and have exchanged their responsibility to their constituents with fealty to the president. They have allowed the president to morph federal agencies into instruments of autocracy. And as a result, the president has been able to ignore federal law, disregard court orders, and implement the largest pay-for-play scheme in American history. The White House, well, what's left of it anyway, is literally up for sale. The federal courts have characterized this presidency as, quote, lawless. In fact, when ruling against illegal acts committed by the administration, a Republican-appointed federal judge stated, quote, the court cannot imagine how the public interest might be served by permitting federal officials to flaunt the very laws they have sworn to enforce. In a separate case where the administration was sued for unlawful acts, the judge, also a Republican appointee, stated, quote, allowing constitutional rights to be dependent upon the grace of the executive branch would be a dereliction of duty by this third and independent branch of government and would be against the public interest. But in another case, the court summed it up perfectly by declaring, quote, as is becoming far too common, we are confronted again with the efforts of the executive branch to set aside the rule of law in pursuit of its own goals. Judiciary Committee Republicans have been completely complicit in this corruption. But since they're so interested in restoring law and order, I have a couple of suggestions on where they can start. Number one, this is the president.
See, so what she's about to do is go through a list of hypocrisies and lies and dishonesty that MAGA tells, but she's missing the point. She's debunking them one by one. You're going to see she goes through and just eviscerates them, but she never gets to the root. The root is these people don't care that they're doing evil. They know they're doing evil. She has got to ask, we have got to ask, why do otherwise good people do evil and not care? Their religion, fear of hell, and for financial rewards. And they get their followers to ignore everything that she's about to say. Only Democrats and liberals will hear. Republicans, they don't care. They're cheerleaders. They don't care what the other team is cheering. It's like doing your cheer to another team's cheerleaders and expecting them to switch up, to switch jerseys because your cheerleaders were better than theirs. They're just going to stop cheering for their team. So she's going to go through and eviscerate all of them one by one, and she's going to be right, but none of it matters because it's not getting through to the point, which is these people are all they know what they're doing is wrong. They know they're liars. They don't care. They're doing it for money or for a corrupted religion. And until we address that root cause, what she's doing is basically going through town and pointing out all the petty misdemeanors that the crackheads are doing. And we're all like, yeah, that's true, they are. Well, what is the point? You're missing the point. And it's not, Jasmine Crockett is one of the most honest, most least bought, most in charge of her free will politicians that we have, and even she's missing the point. They're all missing the point. One of the only people kind of getting the point is Bernie Sanders. He's been right since the 1970s. He said the same thing.
Of the United States standing beside his best friend Jeffrey Epstein. As we all know, Mr. Epstein is one of the most notorious sexual predators in American history. For 8 weeks, the Republicans on this committee have chosen to protect these two men instead of providing justice to Mr. Epstein's victims. Now the administration is panicking. First, they campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. Then AG Bondi and associates did a photo op with the files. And she said, and I quote, "The Epstein list is on my desk." Then somehow, the Epstein list didn't exist. Then the Epstein files became a Democratic hoax. Now the president is supposedly supportive of releasing the files, even though he's currently ignoring a congressional subpoena to do so. Now the president is simply crashing out. And it's because he can't seem to explain his special decades-long relationship with one of the most prominent sexual predators in American history. It's already public that he's in the Epstein files, but his administration is hiding the context of his involvement, if any, with Mr. Epstein's horrific crimes. Now, this is Miss Ghislaine Maxwell. Miss Maxwell, who obviously helped Jeffrey Epstein traffic more than 1,000 women and girls. Well, Donald Trump is now giving her special treatment while she's serving out her prison sentence. He won't even rule out giving her a pardon or commuting her sentence. I don't need to explain why pardoning sex traffickers wouldn't be restoring law and order. Now, this is Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Not only has Secretary Noem been busy filming propaganda ads, she's also been busy cashing in on millions of taxpayer dollars. In fact, Secretary Noem has funneled millions of dollars to a company called the Strategy Group. The Strategy Group helped Secretary Noem win her campaign to become the governor of South Dakota. Corey, Lewandowski, her top policy advisor, has worked with the firm. And the company's CEO is married to Secretary Noem's chief spokesperson, Mrs. Tricia McLaughlin. This is what corruption looks like. They're stealing money from the American people's pockets and depositing it into their bank accounts. Now we move on to yet somebody else. This is the so-called border czar, Tom Homan. Mr. Homan is on tape accepting $50,000 in cash bribes stuffed in a brown paper bag from an undercover FBI agent. Apparently, Mr. Homan accepted these bribes in exchange for awarding federal contracts to his friends. Trump's Department of Justice killed the investigation into Mr. Homan's crimes, and congressional Republicans didn't say a mumbling word. Lastly, this is insurrectionist and Nazi sympathizer Ed Martin. It appears that Mr. Martin is functioning as the Associate Deputy Attorney General, Pardon Attorney, Director of the Fake Weaponization Working Group, and Special Attorney for Mortgage Fraud. All that means is that Mr. Martin is Trump's lapdog, whom the president sends to initiate lawsuits against the president's perceived political opponents. This is what we call organized crime. They're breaking the law, often by stealing taxpayer dollars, covering up their crimes by ending and obstructing investigations, then prosecuting people who call out their unlawful behavior. And while the Republicans are encouraging this corruption, they're abandoning actual victims of violent crime and ignoring the Republican-led state's 21st century murder crisis. In September's appropriation markup, congressional Republicans proposed reducing the FBI staff by thousands of positions and underfunding the agency by more than $1 billion. They've proposed slashing resources from the ATF. They've proposed cutting grants for juvenile justice programs and hate crimes and eliminating the community violence intervention and prevention grants. They're literally defunding the police. So no matter what they say at today's hearing, congressional Republicans have proven that they are not invested in keeping American communities safe from violent crime. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
If you live in a Colorado zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen carefully.
Out the United States on camera.
Prime Minister, if it is a bank CEO, if it is an industry titan of any way, shape.
Well, it looks like Kank wasn't the only one giving blowjobs to Bubba. We also have the biographer of Prince Andrew telling us that Melania Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were playing hide the weenie too.
So here we are with him in Mar-a-Lago, as you see with Epstein. Sorry, can you see it? Epstein, a woman called Gwendolyn Beck, who Andrew took to the island, and Melania. I had various references in my book to Melania Trump. Epstein had actually been her lover before Trump, but Trump didn't like that in the book, so he ordered it to be taken out of the book. After about 60,000 copies had been printed, so it seemed to be a pretty pointless gesture, but anyway, our publishers did it, but I keep spreading the word.
Okay. Here's the deal. I bought that book thinking that it talked about Epstein and Melania Trump, but I bought the book that had already been redacted. I wasn't one of the first 60,000 copies. Are you even remotely surprised that Melania is in this as much as her beloved husband?
No, I'm not even remotely surprised. Nor do I think this is like a massive story. I think what bothers me more about the whole Epstein thing that people are not focusing on are Jeffrey Epstein's collusion and information exchange with Vladimir Putin and the government of Israel. And of course, the United States government, the United States media rather, rarely covers this information exchange and potential compromise on that Jeffrey Epstein was getting with American men, American businessmen, and exchanging this information to Israel.
And Russia.
It's my understanding that
And Russia.
Jeffrey Epstein took this information directly to Vladimir Putin. So if you think about the way Putin humiliated Melania right after the 2.0, they had her on Russian propaganda news and some of her modeling photos and kind of talking about her like she was a piece of meat in Russian media. So this tells me that Putin knows this. Putin knows that Trump got Jeffrey Epstein's sloppy seconds. So the larger international implications of all of this for all of the national security Republicans and all the national security pundits at Fox are what's far more insidious to me.
Well, when I look at this, I just think what we're seeing is a classic corrupt cover-up by the most corrupt administration. And I'm with you. If Trump is giving Bubba a blowjob and Vladimir Putin has the video, that explains everything we need to know about how he has acted. Then you have what he's doing for Israel. Israel first, not America first. What does Netanyahu have? We know Epstein has these ties. Howard Lutnick told us that he recorded everything and bribed everyone. We know Trump was at his house all the time. Like, I'm with you. The national security ramifications are not to protect the pedophiles and the Epstein files. It needs to be, why is national security at an all-time low? Because these leaders of other countries have shit on our president and everybody acts like it's normal. I mean, I just don't understand it.
And why is the American media refusing to really cover this aspect of it? That's corporate media. Of course, independent media, we're all talking about it. Pod Save did a really big story on, or episode on the Jeffrey Epstein Israel connection to former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who Virginia Giuffre says raped her in her book. And these are major stories. And Trump has now ordered his DOJ to investigate Democrats involved in it, to throw the base and Fox News a shiny object to look at it. But I want to be crystal clear about the moral clarity that we as a country should all have in this. If it's a Democrat, if it's a Republican, if it's a former prime minister, if it is a bank CEO, if it is an industry titan of any way, shape, or form, and they're involved in this horrific pedophilia ring, expose every last one of them. And
I don't care what jersey they wear.
Harder on the Democrats than I am on the Republicans, because in the MAGA regime, I expect them to exploit children. Their policies exploit children. They weaponize children as a means to get people to vote for them and act like they care about children with all of their pro-life legislation, which is actually just anti-woman legislation. So I expect this from MAGA. I expect this from the evangelical base, because they are so dismissive of humans once they are born. But if any Democrats are involved in this, that type of hypocrisy, I'm going to call out even more than I am these Republicans.
I completely agree. And another thing is Trump's now saying, well, I've ordered the release of the files, which he could have done all along. But we know for a fact the fix is in. He is not releasing unredacted, here's the whole file. He is sitting on it. He is going to have it completely sanitized. And here's Pam Bondi confirming all of this.
The DOJ statement earlier this year saying that the files would not release mentioned the fact that the review of the documents and the evidence did not suggest that any additional investigation of third parties was warranted. What changed since then that you launched this investigation?
Information that has come forward. Information.
Look at Captain Tell.
There's information, that new information, additional information, and again, we will continue.
Look at these fucking losers. These fucking losers.
To follow the law, to investigate any leads.
Pause that. No, pause that. Is the information, Pam Bondi, that your boss was giving a blowjob to somebody named Bubba, which we have 3 candidates for, obviously Vladimir Putin, Ghislaine Maxwell's horse Bubba, and then some billionaire oil guy from Odessa, his son, who's a big swinging dick around Mar-a-Lago, who's hangs out with Trump all the time, who goes by Bubba. So there's 3 candidates. And is the new information, Pam Bondi, that this is why when everybody was in Alaska and everybody went to a closed door meeting with Vladimir Putin, did he whip out the President of the United States on his hands and knees blowing Bubba. We all know he knows how to do it because we saw him on the campaign trail with jarring familiarity with a microphone on how to perform a blowjob. And of course, this has just been completely pushed to the bottom of the news cycle. So what is that new information, Pam Bondi? Because it seems like the more and more we dig into this, the more and more your boss is at the epicenter of it, and now he's in the epicenter of it doing gay stuff, which is really rich considering your party is so terrified of drag queens. Meanwhile, you've got the biggest fucking queen on the planet rolling around the Oval Office with his Marie Antoinette bullshit and listening to the Phantom of the Opera full tilt to distract from the fact that the Epstein estate has released the fact that you do gay stuff with some guy named Bubba. And here's the deal. I don't give a shit, Kanks, if you want to do gay stuff. I'll fight for your right to do gay stuff, sis. But what I don't like is your party browbeating and bullying and demeaning and dehumanizing all of these LGBTQ people, not only in our country, but worldwide. It's just unbelievable. But I want to ask you about this, Pumps. You know how old people in your life, like as they start to die, they start telling the truth about things like, oh, I really liked, this kid was my favorite kid. I really didn't like my son. My daughter was my favorite. And I really wasn't in love with my wife. I had an affair with blah, blah. I think we're just a few news cycles away from Kanks telling us about gay relationships that he's had. I really do. I think he's just so out of it that it's like, they said, that I did that with Bubba. It really wasn't Bubba. It was somebody else. It's just, when you really stop and isolate all the times he talks about men and how he is happiest in homosocial relationships, he's always surrounded by men. The whole MAGA movement is the whole broadcasting, podcasting thing. It's all men on men on men on men.
MAGA is closeted gay men and incels. It's all closeted gay men and incels. And people who use money or religion to trick their wives and a cult into marrying them, those are still incels.
All of this homosocial stuff, I just think
it's all daddy pleasing. I'll give up my free will if daddy tells me I'm a good boy. That's bitch-made behavior.
Got a major old dementia-ridden queen in the office, and this tea that Vladimir Putin has the goods on that makes perfect sense.
You know what else makes perfect sense now? He called the Post impersonating somebody else, saying he was the best lay in New York City. Because he obviously knows he's a terrible lay with women. Maybe he's great at blowjobs. Maybe Bubba said he is a terrible man, sucked the chrome off a car. But I find it interesting when you look back at his history of always trying to tell you what a great lover he is, and we know for a fact he's not, because Stormy Daniels told us. I think that's interesting too. One thing I really want to emphasize in this whole Pam Bondi thing, she's reopening the investigation because it allows her to keep material. That is why she's doing it. It's not new information. It is covering up old information. And then what I found interesting is you're even losing Joe Rogan. He's laughing at Trump and this administration.
The Epstein files.
I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax. And then all of a sudden, he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man.
He wants an investigation now.
Listen.
Like, what is going on?
They voted 427 to 1.
Who was the one?
Whoa, who's the one?
I didn't see why he said, but he did.
And see, the reason why Joe Rogan is a weak little bitch is because he will just conform to whoever his guest is. If his guest is more liberal, he'll play the liberal. If his guest is conservative, he'll play MAGA. Because he has no fucking spine. He's a little bitch. And only weak and ignorant people caught in this cult can be confused about who's who.
Security.
No fucking way you gonna be the one. No way.
I mean, when Joe Rogan is mocking your bullshit national security and saying, I thought it was a hoax, it wasn't, these MAGA alpha men / beta men, they listen to this. I mean, it's getting through to his base on this.
There are 0 alpha men in MAGA. 0. MAGA doesn't even understand alpha and beta. We've done videos on this. It's so cringe because they don't even understand the science. But by their own terms, we know what they think alpha is. We know what they think beta is. By their own terms, these men kneel to beta males. They are all they're lower than beta by their own definitions. The way that they define alpha, nobody in MAGA meets those criteria. They are all subservient beta male simps trading their free will because they're afraid of hell or for money.
And I just think it's really important that the corporate media frame this as following. We had the majority of the people that work at the DOJ prior to getting these appointments were podcasters, and their full-time subject was elites getting away with pedophilia, and that all of these Jeffrey Epstein files needed to be released. And there's some bipartisanship in that. I agree with these crazy conspiracy theorists on the right. A lot of their conspiracies I don't agree with, but I believe in justice. I believe in sanitizing and shining light on all of these egregious abuses that happen at the hands of elites that thought that they were the exception, that thought that they were entitled to do it. So then they all get in these positions of power, and they trot out to all of these influencers, swing by the White House and we're going to give you your books. Right. And they all come.
What they're doing wrong is they're just debunking all of the lies and not going to the root cause. These people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel only talked about the Epstein files for money. They did it for money. They don't care. They don't care at all. That's everything we've talked about today. Liberals are missing the point. You've got to understand these people have sacrificed their free will for money or for their religion. Nothing they say matters. It's like taking another team's cheerleaders and doing your cheers in front of their fans and expecting their fans are going to now switch their jersey to your team. It's crazy.